Intimacy is a powerful force. It has the power to transform, to heal, but also to leave deep marks that we cannot always see. When two people connect on this level, they are not just sharing a moment, but mixing their essences, their stories, their energies. And this exchange, although invisible, can remain for a long time. There are people who pass through our lives like a light breeze, and there are people who enter like a hurricane. Some connections arrive subtly, bringing peace, balance, almost without leaving a trace. Others, however, come like storms, messing up everything inside, awakening emotions that we didn't even know existed. And the most impressive thing is that even after everything passes, some of these presences remain within us, like echoes of something we cannot explain. Each intimate encounter goes far beyond the physical. There is a fusion of emotions, feelings, and vibrations that can uplift or weigh down, strengthen or exhaust. It's as if, when you give yourself to someone, you open a door for that person to leave a little of themselves inside you, at the same time as they take a little of you with them. Some connections flow like a peaceful river, bringing peace and balance. Others, however, leave traces that we carry without realizing it, affecting our thoughts, our emotions, and even our vital energy. The impact of this switch may be subtle at first. An unexpected tiredness, an unexplained change in mood, the feeling of being stuck with something that should have already been left behind. All of this may be a reflection of the energy that was shared. Some people go on with their lives without understanding why they feel so burdened, as if something is still pulling them back to the past. But what if intimacy could be a portal to something greater? What if, instead of simply reacting to these exchanges, we started to see them consciously, transforming each connection into an experience of growth and evolution? What happens when we give ourselves to someone so deeply? What brands are inside us? And how can we use this understanding to strengthen ourselves spiritually? That's what we're going to explore now, because intimacy, when lived consciously, can be much more than a date. It can be a path of transformation. Every time two people connect in an intimate way, something bigger happens. It's not just a physical meeting. There is an invisible fusion happening, an intense exchange of energy that can strengthen or overwhelm us. And the most curious thing is that often this exchange happens without us realizing it. Each person carries within them a unique vibrational field, formed by their experiences, emotions, and even the way they see life. When intimacy happens, these fields merge. If the other's energy is light, balanced, the exchange will be harmonious and can even raise our vibration. But if there is unresolved pain, trauma, or heavy feelings, this burden can be transmitted, leaving us emotionally confused, tired, or even sad for no apparent reason. It's like entering a charged environment. You know when you arrive at a place and you feel a heaviness in the air, as if something is wrong, even without anyone saying a word? Now, imagine this happening inside you. When we connect deeply with someone, we absorb part of what they carry, and what we receive depends directly on what she has inside her. Many people experience this switch without understanding its effects. Has it ever happened that after a date, you feel without energy, unmotivated, or with thoughts that don't seem like you? This could be a sign that the shared energy was not in balance. Some connections leave a feeling of wholeness and peace, while others can leave us feeling empty, as if something has been taken from us. And it's not just that. The more intense and frequent this exchange, the deeper the energetic bond becomes. Some people come into our lives, and even after they leave traces inside us. We may move forward physically, but energetically we are still connected. And this connection can influence our emotions, our desires, and even the next relationships we will have. But if energetic exchange is inevitable, how can we prevent it from overwhelming us? How can we transform intimacy into an act that strengthens rather than weakens? The answer starts with understanding what we are bringing to this exchange. Because it's not just the other person who leaves something in us, we also share our energy. And if we carry unresolved emotions, insecurities, or pain from the past, this will also be transmitted. So, what really happens when these past emotions and traumas enter intimacy? How do they shape the connections we create and often trap us in cycles that seem impossible to break? Everything we experience leaves marks. Our emotions, our pain, and even the moments we try to forget are recorded within us. And when we connect intimately with someone, this emotional baggage is not left out. On the contrary, it manifests itself in ways that we cannot always control. If you've ever had the feeling that certain patterns repeat themselves in your relationships, as if you're always attracting the same type of situation, this may be directly linked to emotions that have not yet been healed. The fear of abandonment, insecurity, the difficulty in trusting, all of this can emerge in intimacy, transforming what should be a moment of exchange and connection into a reflection of the wounds we still carry. Intimacy, in fact, is a great mirror. It reveals not only how we feel about others, but also how we feel about ourselves. If we have difficulty accepting love, giving ourselves without fear, or establishing healthy limits, this does not come out of nowhere. They are reflections of our history, of the traumas that left marks and that often still control our choices without us realizing it. And it's not just what we experience in this life that influences these connections. Some emotions seem to come from an even deeper place, as if they were carried from times we can't even remember. Inexplicable sensations, fears that don't make sense, a strong feeling of déjà vu when meeting someone. All of this can be a sign that this energetic exchange goes beyond the present. But if intimacy can awaken our shadows so much, can it also heal us? Is it possible to transform this space of vulnerability into a path to emotional liberation? What if intimacy could be more than a reflection of past pain? What if it could be a key to healing and transformation? If intimacy has the power to awaken traumas, insecurities, and patterns that we carry without realizing it, can it also heal us? The answer is yes. When experienced consciously, intimacy can be a powerful tool for emotional and spiritual liberation. We often run away from what we feel. We bury memories, avoid talking about certain pains, and try to move forward without looking back. But the truth is that everything that is not resolved within us is still there, waiting for the right moment to emerge. And one of the moments when this happens most strongly is in intimate exchanges with another person. This is because in this state of deep connection, we become more vulnerable. We lower our barriers and allow others to truly see us. And in this process, everything that was kept comes to the surface. Fears, repressed desires, needs, and above all, what still needs to be healed. The big question is, what do we do with it? We can continue to ignore these signs, repeating the same patterns and engaging with the same energies. Or we can use intimacy as a mirror, a portal to see what really needs to be transformed within us. When there is love, respect, and true surrender, intimate exchange can help dissolve emotional blocks, bring to light issues that need to be resolved, and even teach us to trust again. In an environment of safety and understanding, intimacy becomes a healing space where we can feel accepted and welcomed exactly as we are. But for this to happen, we need to learn to observe ourselves. What does intimacy awaken in you? How do you feel after a deep encounter with someone? Is the energy that stays within you one of lightness or heaviness, joy or emptiness? The answers to these questions show a lot about the quality of the connections we are creating. Because it's not enough to just want a healing relationship. You have to be willing to bring awareness to each exchange, to notice the signs that your own body and soul give us. But is this awareness enough? Or are there even subtler forces influencing the way we connect with each other? What if certain connections are deeper than we realize? What if there are invisible ties that connect us to some people, even when we should have moved on? Not all connections ends when the relationship ends. Some seem to remain alive within us, as if an invisible thread still connects us to that person. Even when we try to move forward, certain emotions return. Certain thoughts insist on pulling us back to the past. Why? This happens because intimacy does not dissolve the moment physical contact ends. The energy that was exchanged continues to exist, often remaining active without us realizing it. If the connection was intense, involved deep emotions, or if there was emotional dependence, this bond can become even stronger, creating a feeling of attachment or even energetic imprisonment. And the most curious thing is that these connections do not always come only from the present. Some relationships carry something that goes beyond the now, bringing patterns that repeat themselves in inexplicable ways. Have you ever felt like you knew someone from the first date? Or that a connection felt more intense than would make sense for the time they spent together? Many of these experiences may be linked to ties that come from before, perhaps from past lives, perhaps from learning that has not yet been completed. Whatever the origin, what matters is that these bonds can influence the way we feel, how we relate, and even how we see love. Many people get stuck in stories that no longer exist, reliving emotions from relationships that, in practice, should have already been left behind. Others continue to carry pain, hurt, or even a feeling of energetic debt to someone. But if the energy exchanged in intimacy can trap us in this way, how can we free ourselves? How can we break ties that no longer serve us and move forward with ease? The answer lies in consciousness and choice. No connection can hold us if we don't keep nurturing that connection. The first step is to understand what still keeps us connected to someone. Are they memories, unresolved emotions, blame, longing? Once we identify what is holding us back, we can begin to loosen those ties. Energy cleansing rituals, meditations, and self-reconnection practices can help with this process. But above all, we must accept that some connections need to be closed so that we can move forward. And this is one of the great challenges of intimacy, learning to let go. Because when we hold on to something that should have already been released, we don't make room for new connections that are healthier and more aligned with who we are becoming. But what happens when we finally manage to free ourselves from these bonds? What changes within us when we start to experience intimacy as a conscious choice and not as an impulse or a need? What if intimacy was experienced in a lighter way, more aligned with what we really want? How would this transform the way we relate to each other and the energy we exchange? I remember a conversation I had with a friend a few years ago. He told me something I never forgot. There are people who pass through our lives like a light breeze, and there are people who enter like a hurricane. At the time, I thought it was just a nice metaphor about relationships, but over time I realized he was talking about something much deeper. The impact that connections have on us and how some of them transform us forever. He talked about a relationship he had, one of those that arrives in an overwhelming way, consuming every thought, filling every space. At first, everything seemed perfect. There was passion, commitment, an intense connection that seemed unbreakable. But over time, something began to change. He started to feel tired, a weight in his chest that he couldn't explain. Small anxiety attacks would appear out of nowhere, and no matter how much I was by her side, I felt a growing emptiness. What should have been an exchange of love and complicity became a cycle of emotional exhaustion. He didn't understand why he felt this way. After all, the relationship had everything to be incredible. But after much reflection, he realized that it wasn't just about feelings. It was about energy. He had absorbed her pains, insecurities, and traumas in the same way she absorbed his. The relationship was no longer a space for growth, but rather a place where they were both losing themselves. The day he decided to leave, he felt immediate relief, but the bond was still there. Months later, he still dreamed of her, still missed her, was still pulled by memories that seemed too vivid to be just memories. It was only when he realized that he carried part of her energy inside him that he understood what he needed to do. It wasn't just moving forward, it was clearing this invisible bond that kept them connected. This story made me think about how many times we get stuck in connections that should have already been released. How many times do we carry weights that are not ours, experiencing emotions that actually belong to someone who is no longer part of our lives? And how often do we let intimacy be guided by impulses without being aware of the impact that each exchange can have on our being? Intimacy, when experienced without reflection, can make us prisoners of repetitive cycles. But when we see clearly what we are exchanging and receiving, it becomes a tool for growth and healing. This doesn't mean we should avoid connections or be afraid to indulge. On the contrary, it means that we must be present in each exchange, aware of the energy we carry and the energy we allow to enter us. We must learn to listen to our body, to notice the subtle signals it gives us. Because he always speaks, we just need to be attentive to listen. If, after intimacy, you feel lightness, joy, and a sense of fullness, it is a sign that the exchange was balanced. But if, on the contrary, you feel empty, emotional weight, confused thoughts, or inexplicable tiredness, perhaps it's time to ask yourself, is this connection nourishing or draining me? Consciously choosing who we share our energy with is an act of self-love. It's not about creating barriers or closing yourself off from the world, but about honoring yourself, respecting your space, and understanding that intimacy should not be a place of loss, but of genuine exchange. Once we understand this, we begin to relate in a different way. We stop looking for connections that fill gaps and start looking for encounters that expand us. We stop holding on to what should have already been left behind and make space for experiences that truly uplift us. Because at the end of the day, intimacy isn't about being with someone, it's about being whole within yourself, so that every connection is a choice, not a necessity. And now I ask you, are the connections you have today sources of light or weight? Does the energy you exchange with others strengthen or weaken your journey? The answer to this could change everything.